All right, welcome to part two of looking at Neirea's Freeze Mage play. Believe it or not, I actually did an entire segment of this with the mic muted, and I was talking to myself, and chat was able to make fun of me after that. In any case, so in part one, we saw Neirea go in a back and forth matchup between his Freeze Mage and Maverick's Control Mage, and really, like I said, went back and forth, and really. We didn't know who was going to win until the very end. But this is a completely different story. This is a situation where Neirea completely beats down Thijs and completely dominates this game. Even though this matchup is it's pretty even matchup, and a lot of pros, including myself, would even say that it's slightly Patron Warrior favored, assuming both players play pretty well. And Thijs is a very, very good player, so the fact that Neirea was able to completely control and dominate this game really shows you how well he's capable of playing it. And these first few turns are pretty standard, pretty straightforward. Neirea goes ahead and play the Mad Scientist first before he plays Loot Hoarder. For you new Freeze Mage players out there, you want to do that because you want to get your secrets out first before you play your card draw, so that you don't draw into the secrets. And Thijs goes ahead, kills both off with his fireworks, and he draws one with his Battle Rage, kind of anticipating that this match might go into fatigue. So instead of waiting for a situation later where he has some guys that are hurt on the board, he decides to just expand his options right now and go for the Battle Rage. And he does pick up the Death Bite. He didn't know he was going to draw two Death Bites, but he picks up one, which is decent because now he can deal with this Loot Hoarder. He actually goes ahead and attacks face, which is pretty strange. By the way, sorry for the little bit of blurry screen. I don't. My internet connection isn't the best, so I can't go on either high or source. Unfortunately, it kind of goes in spurts. Sometimes sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But in any case, Thijs makes a strange play again, like I said, of going to face. Obviously, the Loot Hoarder gets attacked this turn, or attack on Neirea's turn. So really, all this accomplishes from Thijs' perspective is it gets 4 more damage on Neirea, which is, it could make a difference in the end. And Neirea, not wanting to give his opponent any more options, just goes ahead and pings face. If he went with the Arcane Intellect, he would have overdrawn. As you can see, he has 8 cards in hand. The card from the Loot Hoarder would have gone to 9, and then the Intellect would have gone to 10, which would have made him overdraw on the following turn. Now, Thijs goes with a very interesting play here, and he decides to make 2 Grim Patrons. And the reason why he does this is because he doesn't want to waste a Whirlwind. And I'm going to go ahead and pause it right here. What this does is that, the reason why he doesn't want to use the Whirlwind is because Whirlwind is very, very valuable in this matchup for one of 2 reasons. Either you use it to basically OTK your opponent and, OTK the ice block and basically get your opponent down really, really low, put a lot of pressure on your opponent and basically kill him, after that, because he doesn't really have time to both heal and stop your board or AoE or use Alexstrasza or something like that, or like freeze and heal and do everything. So that's one way to win. The more common way for the Patron Warrior to win is to basically accumulate so much armor that it's impossible for the Freeze Mage to do enough damage, provided that the Patron Warrior is on top of killing all of the major threats, that being Alexstrasza, Archmage Antonidas, and sometimes Emperor Thorson. So what Thijs is doing here is he really wants to save these Whirlwinds, and he figures that these patrons are threatening enough, right? So these patrons are threatening enough to make either Neirea use AoE on it, or he uses some of his burn, like Fireball Frostbolt, which makes his Antonidas that much weaker. And Neirea more or less calls his bluff, which is super, super interesting, because what he could have done is he could have gone coin Flamestrike here, and obviously that clears the board, but instead he goes for Frost Nova Doomsayer. And the interesting thing about this is that, yes, this can be used later to kind of deal with something like an Armorsmith board and make sure that his opponent doesn't get even more armor by clearing it. But it's kind of like a bait, right? Like either his opponent uses and execute on this, or even in the worst case scenario, this basically the worst case scenario in this situation is that these patrons just die. From Neirea's perspective, I think he actually wants his opponent to use resources to kill this, and the reason why It's because say he uses like War Song or something, then he can just kill the War Song. It's gone. If he and if he uses Execute, the Execute's gone for the future. And so Thijs either has to let these go, which is good for Neirea because okay, first patron's gone, so there's less stuff that he has to AoE in the future. So this makes Thijs have to make a really tough decision. He either has to use Execute or let him go or use other resources, right? And what he does is, since Neirea did not use AoE this turn, Thijs maybe thought that Neirea was being desperate by using this play, but actually he doesn't realize that Neirea actually has the Flame Strike. So Thijs goes ahead and expends not only one of his Whirlwinds, but the first charge of his second Deathbite, his last Deathbite. And then now Neirea basically gets a Flame Strike this is an amazing position for him because he's gotten rid of the first the Deathbite Whirlwind, the Whirlwind from the first Deathbite, and he's gotten rid of Whirlwind out of Thijs' hand, and he's gotten the first charge of Thijs' Deathbite onto the field. And now, basically, Thijs has to just sit here and wait until he can get a good charge off of this. And then once he does, that's the third Whirlwind gone. So Neirea is really, really happy about this. He's basically gotten rid of so many Whirlwinds just by managing his resources in this particular way. And one thing that Neirea has done with this deck is tech in a duplicate, and it makes it so much harder for control decks or even combo decks like this that have to allocate their resources very, very specifically and very, very carefully. It makes it very, very difficult for them to deal with the threats that are coming out of Neirea. And he didn't want to play duplicate earlier because he didn't want to duplicate anything stupid. So he goes ahead and Arcane Intellects, and then when he finds the Alexstrasza, he decides that that's good enough to duplicate. He plays the Alexstrasza and he coins because he doesn't want to overdraw too much. But he knows that if this Alexstrasza dies, he's going to overdraw by 1. But he really thinks that he decides that the Iceland is more important than an average card in his deck, right? Because that is basically 4 damage plus make a fireball. So basically that one Iceland is essentially 10 damage, which, as you can tell, is pretty. I mean, you wouldn't just throw out a Pyroblast there, right? If you had the chance, you want to hold on to it for a better situation. And so now Thijs is in a really, really horrible spot, and he actually makes a really, really cool play here. What he does is, instead of executing that, he can't really deal with multiple Alexstrazzas, right? Because once if he just goes ahead and executes that, then Neirea just plays it again, and then Thijs doesn't really have a way to deal with the other Alexstrazzas in an efficient way. And by efficient, I mean doing multiple things at once, right? Like getting a lot of armor and killing Alexstrasza, popping your opponent's block and killing Alexstrasza or something like that. So he doesn't have those options right now, or not before he picked up the Unseeable Goal. But once he picks up the Unseeable Goal, he comes up with a really, really nice play. And he's going to hit this Alexstrasza, get him down to 1 health. And I think about the Inner Rage, but thinks better of it. And what this does is force Neirea to kill his own Alexstrasza. Or, I mean, even if he AoEs the opponent's board, his own Alexstrasza dies. Or he can just leave it there and make it so that Thijs gets more and more armor. But Neirea, he sees this and he likes what he sees, right? Because that's the 4th Whirlwind. He just saw his opponent use the Deathbite, and now he's used that Unseeable Goal. And it seems really, really bad for Neirea because Thijs is getting a lot of armor. But Neirea has been counting all these cards, right? He's counted 1 Fire Warlocks, 2 Deathbites, 4 Whirlwinds. There's only one, maybe 2 Whirlwinds left in the entire deck, right? So he gets rid of his Alexstrasza, and part of the reason why he was fine with getting rid of his Alexstrasza, even though his opponent could have gotten, even though his opponent gets more armor there, is he didn't want to be stuck in a situation where his opponent, say, plays, his opponent plays War Song plus Frothing plus Whirlwind, and then he pops his block, and then he pops the opponent's block, gets a bunch of armor, and then now the fact that he has 2 Alexstrazzas doesn't matter. Like, he has no time to ever use the Alexstrasza. So he picks up the Thoracid and he says, okay, this is even better than Alexstrasza to get duplicated. I'm actually perfectly fine with this. And Thijs really just plays into his hands. He uses his last Whirlwind, I believe. I think there's no more Unseeable Goals. I don't know if Neirea actually knows this. They could have looked at each other's decks from the matches they played in the previous rounds. This is day 2 of the SCAN Invitational, so maybe Neirea went back and looked at day 1 and looked at Thijs' deck and knows exactly that there's actually no more Whirlwinds in it. If not, he knows there's at most 1 left. So here he overdraws, but he actually overdraws the Mad Scientist and says sorry. I'm not really sure what the sorry is referring to. It could have been the fact that he drew the Mad Scientist, which doesn't really matter at all, or it could be the fact that he got the 2 Thorisons. And so Neirea goes ahead and just gives his opponent even more armor, and by picking the Acolyte first and making him, he's not going to make him overdraw here. It's not going to make him burn any cards, but it gets him closer and closer to getting to fatigue, which is really important. So Neirea has basically he's basically come to the conclusion that he's probably not going to ever get enough damage to overcome this amount of armor, but what he can do is get way ahead in the fatigue count, and he also on top of that knows that his opponent basically cannot kill him because he's been counting all the whirlwinds that have been coming from Thijs. I'm really not sure what that I'm sorry is about. I didn't know it at the time. I don't know it now. But so yeah, again, Neirea has just been playing this like absolutely immaculately, and the one thing that makes it really impressive is that he's been keeping track of every single last card that Thijs has been using, and really just knowing that Thijs really has no way to burst him down anymore. He has no more whirlwinds. He has no more way to effectively use his frothing berserkers and do anything. So as long as he can get him a little bit, as long as he can get Thijs a few cards ahead in the fatigue battle, he's basically 10, 15, 20 health ahead in that regard, depending if Thijs is on the 5th card fatigue or 6th card fatigue or 7th card fatigue. And then this makes Neirea even happier because this is going to be the last. No, I think this is the second last Enrage, I believe. And this is also the last patron. And again, Neirea makes a really heads up play here, knowing that there's one more Enrage, and knowing that there's no more whirlwinds. He goes ahead and just kills off this patron. There's no more patrons left in the game. Just leaves a war song, and it just makes an impossible decision for Thijs, right? Because Thijs can either commit 2 frothings. He knows that Thijs has to commit frothings. Thijs has to either put frothings on the board, or he has to put like a Gnomish Inventor on the board, which hurts him obviously as well. If he puts frothing on the board, then he's leaving himself open to getting AoE'd. And even though Neirea doesn't have the AoE, he could draw it. If he doesn't draw it, maybe he can like just Ice Lance it or something. But he knows that it's a really big risk for Thijs to be just playing out, frothings just to kill one Doomsayer and then be susceptible to AoE the following turn. So really heads up play by Neirea, knowing exactly what's left in Thijs' deck and knowing that he has really no way to deal with it. And on top of that, obviously he knows that Neirea is not going to execute that, or if he does, then Neirea is in even better position because he gets to just have a free Antonidas. Because the Antonidas, basically, in order to kill the Antonidas once the execute is gone, he can't use. He can't use. He has to use all of his minions to go into the Antonidas. So at that point, he wins anyway. So beating the execute out in that situation would be equally good. Here, Neirea is just waiting for the Antonidas to come back so that he can play Thorison for in that situation. And Thijs really has nothing to do. He's already going to fatigue. He's 1 card away from fatigue. He finally picks up the Thorison, plays it here. Neirea fireballs that, picks up the Antonidas, and so he's going to with Thorison. Sorry, I mean, I'm not actually ahead in the video. I actually just know what happens in this game. But yeah, so Neirea is such in a dominant position, and going back to that Doomsayer play, even if Neirea didn't know if there was an unstable goal left in the deck, he knows that it wouldn't have been able to be procced because of the fact that the Doomsayer doesn't have any attack value, because he knows that there's no slams left either. You can't, unless he shield slams his own unstable goal. So he knows that there's no potential for that Doomsayer to enable some sort of crazy combo from his opponent and get him down to get his his block popped, not his pop blocked. Yeah, you don't want to get your pop blocked, guys. Anyway, so throws on the Thorson, figures that this is good enough, getting the Antonidas to um, 6 mana is very very good, and Thijs is just in a horrible spot. Really has nothing to do. I think he just Seal Sims here. Um, and yeah, so it's just a really amazing game by Neirea because he's able to force out all the whirlwinds, and then once he forces out the whirlwinds, he's able to play according to that situation, just throwing out the Doomsayer, making it so that Thijs is put into really really awkward spots to deal with the things that Neirea came up with. Obviously, he got slightly fortunate. I mean, he got lucky that he didn't get unlucky because when he burned the Mad Scientist instead of something more important. But overall, um, Neirea just playing perfectly with the sequencing, playing perfectly with the information that he has gleaned from how the match has gone on, and that's one thing that's really important about being able to master a certain a deck is that you can't just master the cards that you have. You need to know all the cards that are in your opponent's deck. Need to know exactly what their capabilities are, and that exactly what threats they have, and kind of know exactly how to play around those certain situations. So I think we're going to see Thijs armor up again here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. He armors up, and then in the following turn, Neirea picks up Frostbolt, and he goes with the Antonidas Frostbolt face, double Ice Sense face. Does the 14 damage and gets 18 damage in hand. Just waiting for that to happen. And while we wait for that, I'm gonna take a drink. So yeah, again, Thijs is a really, really good player, but it was almost impossible to navigate the situation because of how he was. Oh, sorry, this doesn't happen yet. He plays the anti-heal. Um, so he plays the anti-heal bot because he knows that he's not going to get bursted down. Sometimes you want to wait to play the anti-heal bot, and the reason for that is because with Frothings, if they have the right tools, they can kill you from anywhere, right? It's like getting Alex Strazed. You don't want to play anti-kill bot until you get Alex Strazed. And same thing with Frothings. They can kill you from anywhere as long as they have the right tools. So you want to let them pop your block first, and then you clear the board and you play the anti-kill bot. But in this case, again, Neirea knows that there's no whirlwind, so he knows he's not going to get bursted down, so he's fine. He can just play the heal bot now. So he finally picks up the Frostbolt, goes for the play that I mentioned a couple turns ago. But yeah, again, just reiterating again, going to repeat myself. Thijs is a good player, okay, but he could really do nothing in this game. There's a couple maybe small mistakes that he did, kind of little impatient plays, but put yourself in his shoes. There really wasn't much else that he could have done in that situation. Obviously, the draws didn't come out in the perfect order, but it. I mean, they weren't the worst draws ever. You know what I'm saying? And so Thijs is going to go ahead and War Song, Frothing, Inner Rage, Execute, and go face with the rest. Basically, last year's effort, and just kind of crossing his fingers and hoping that his opponent doesn't have AOE, and hoping that his opponent has to use fireballs in these guys, and maybe he can get a little bit of extra damage that way. And then in response, Neirea goes ahead and plays Blood Mage Thalanos Blizzard. And the reason why he plays the Blood Mage, even though he's going to be going into Fatigue soon, is that first of all, he knows that he's several cards ahead of his opponent anyway, so it's not going to matter too much. And the bigger thing is that if he just plays Blizzard, he also has to Fireball. Because, or I guess, okay, what he could have done is gone Blizzard Ping, and then Ping Fireball, but that uses too much time and effort, really. And it's obvious that you're losing a fireball to the face as well, which is kind of crappy. And also this works out so well mana wise because he gets to play the Ice Bearer as well. And the biggest thing is that excuse me. The other thing about this is actually this is going to be a really cool turn coming up, and it just shows how much Neirea has been paying attention and how much he knows exactly what's going on in this matchup, and knows exactly the cards that Thijs has left in his hand. He goes out and plays the Acolyte even though he's already into Fatigue, and it's amazing because he knows that he has no more Whirlwinds, he has no more Inner Rages, he has no way to make, or excuse me, talking about Thijs has no way to make Neirea draw extra cards. Not only that, Like I said, he has no more weapons, so he has no way to actually even attack this. The only way he could possibly kill this or even do damage to it is if he played out something like Gnomish Inventor, and he knows that there's nothing like Harrison Jones that doesn't, like a minion that doesn't draw cards, because that would have already been played by Thijs. So they're really keeping track of every single last card to the very end. Knows that he has no way to deal with that Acolyte. And it seems like such a crazy play to make, to play the Acolyte there. Sometimes you make it out of desperation. You know, I've seen, you know, back in the day, Control Warrior versus Control Warrior, you're kind of like, I hope he doesn't have a way to deal with this, and then they do, then you're kind of sad. But this is completely different. Neirea knew exactly what was in Thijs' deck, and you knew he had no way to deal with it without shooting himself in the foot. So yeah, there you have it. 2 games by Neirea's Freeze Mage, showing really awesome play, and I hope you guys like it. Those of you in Twitch, thanks for watching again for the second time. And I'll be streaming. I'll be doing a couple games in a couple seconds. Those of you watching on YouTube, if you like it, click subscribe.